Let's recap our teams from our way too early mock draft up next on Fantasy Baseball Today in 5. Welcome into FBT in 5 on Saturday, November 9th, my birthday. How about that? I am Frank Stampfl, joined by Chris Towers. Let's take a look at our... Let's go.
That was like I don't know. That sounded like a car horn, but it was supposed to be one of those like...
Are you doing the, get out of my way, I'm walking here?
Hey, New York City.
Let's take a look at our teams. Chris was drafting 10th overall. I was drafting 1st overall, and we will start with Chris's infield, where he had Francisco Alvarez, Sean Murphy, Josh Naylor, Xander Bogaerts, Austin Riley, CJ Abrams, and then Matt McClain at middle infield, and Michael Toglia at corner. At first glance, Chris, this looks pretty good. What do you think?
Yeah, it feels pretty strong, and in the context of my outfield and DH, I think it's even stronger. Austin Riley and CJ Abrams especially are two guys who I think could fall a little further than they were last year. And Riley certainly will go later, as we've seen in early drafts. And I don't really think he should. This is a guy who the first 2 months of the season were bad, and the overall numbers are pretty disappointing. From June 1st on, he was on a 38 homer pace. He hit 275. The underlying numbers are almost all where they should have been. And he just didn't have enough time before he broke his hand to get to where he needed to be. So I'm pretty much viewing Austin Riley exactly like I did last year. I think you don't have to take him in the second round. If you did, it probably works out pretty well for you. So I'm really happy with this infield. Got some upside with Matt McClain and Michael Toglia. Toglia needs to hit for a better batting average to live up to it. And McClain likely to have multi-eligibility. I think he's going to have second and short this year because he didn't play in 2024.
He has shortstop
should roll over.
He has shortstop to start, actually. Our read was that he was going to play second, but now they're saying they might give him a shot in the outfield. So
yeah, that's what I was going to say. Is he's going to have multi-eligibility either way because he's playing the outfield in Arizona Fall League. He has some experience there. So I think in some regard, Matt McClain is going to be multi-eligible, and I think he's an awesome middle infield choice.
In your outfield, you have Kyle Tucker, Corbin Carroll, Randy Arozarena, Colton Cowser, Victor Robles, with Marcell Ozuna at utility. You know what, Chris? The infield, the outfield, they both look great. It's going to be interesting to see who you got at your pitchers.
Yeah, I didn't invest a ton at pitcher, but I still feel pretty good about it. We'll get there. I had to take some flyers, but I think it's a really strong overall offensive team. I think at the outfield, you've got a ton of power and a ton of speed. Corbin Carroll, a true standout in stolen bases and runs at the very least. Kyle Tucker, potentially a 5 category standout. And I don't know, Marcell Ozuna, there's still that seed of doubt in a lot of people's minds. The fact that he's DH only certainly doesn't help, but he has been a top 20 player in fantasy 2 years in a row, right? Like he hit 40 home runs in 2023, followed up with 39 in 2024. He's not a batting average liability. I know he's on the older side. There's been some consistency issues for him, but I think all of the DH only players except for Shohei Ohtani look like pretty good values right now, and perfectly happy to get Marcell Ozuna there.
And for your pitchers, you have Max Fried, Joe Ryan, Brian Wu, Spencer Arrighetti, Jesus Luzardo, Bobby Miller, DJ Hers, and then 2 great closers in Edwin Diaz and Yohan Duran. So, you took some flyers on the pitching side, some injury bounce backs, and obviously you would need those to hit, but obviously the offense was awesome. So what do you think about how the pitching staff turned out?
I think Fried and Ryan are really solid SP2s, and I don't have the SP1. So you're hoping that Bobby Miller takes that step forward, or Brian Wu can stay healthy and maybe pitch like an SP1. It's lacking the highest end talent, but you look at the overall, Arrighetti, we love the upside there. Max Fried is really solid. Luzardo, he's healthy right now. He said he's 100% healthy. He's recovered from the lumbar stress reaction. Hopefully the forearm issue that he had early on in the season. That's the thing that you have to keep in mind with. It was a forearm early in the season. He came back, pitched a little bit, then it was a back. So I'm more worried about the forearm than I am the back. If the arm is healthy, we know he can be a must-start pitcher. And then I took the upside flyers on DJ Hers and Bobby Miller with some of my last picks. It's possible that those are both throwaway picks, but I like the potential.
Let's quickly move through my team. I'm going to read the infield and outfield together. So lots of names being thrown your way, but in the infield, William Contreras, Ryan Jeffers, Tristan Casas, Jordan Westberg, Rafael Devers, Zach Neto, Andres Jimenez at middle infield, and Ryan Mountcastle at corner infield. So it doesn't really have the star power. I think it's probably okay on the surface.
I will say a couple of guys, specifically Casas and Mountcastle, kind of hoping for a trade for both of them. Casas is a guy who's been mentioned in trade rumors for the Red Sox if they are looking for starting pitcher. Fenway Park, great place to hit. Really bad place for left-handed power, especially, however. So that's one. And then Mountcastle, it's kind of the same thing. Baltimore is just killing him. It feels like an obvious place that they can make a trade. And Mountcastle could be a 30-homer guy in another park.
Yeah. And then in the outfield, I have James Wood, Seiya Suzuki, Nick Castellanos, Tommy Edman, Evan Carter with Ohtani at utility. So overall, it kind of feels light. And Chris, my takeaway was, if you take Ohtani first overall and you are one of the first teams to take a catcher, then I think at the end of the draft, you're just going to feel a little bit light. Maybe it'll turn out to be just fine, but on paper, it will feel light. Does that make sense?
Not just that, you took Wheeler at the top of the third round when starting pitchers fell. So I think that's one where I'm sure if you could go back, knowing guys who are available in the 4-5 range at starting pitcher, Wheeler's awesome. That's maybe the best rotation anchor you can have in terms of projectability, but the overall offense certainly, I think, struggles a little bit. But the other thing you have to keep in mind when you take Shohei Ohtani with your number 1 or number 2 overall pick is you're going to scroll down for a while and be like, God, this offense isn't that good. What? Oh, that's right.
Yep.
My best player is a DH, of course. It looks a lot better once you get down there.
That's exactly right. And then on the pitcher side, we have Zach Wheeler, Shota Imanaga, Spencer Schwellenbach, Christopher Sanchez, Ranger Suarez, Sandy Alcantara, and then my relievers, Felix Bautista, David Bednar, and Kenley Jansen. Even this, Chris, Wheeler, Imanaga, Schwellenbach as a top 3. I think that's fine. But the staff might be lacking some strikeouts. Sanchez, Suarez.
That's the one thing, yeah.
Sandy, I don't think there's enough strikeouts. So look, it's our first mock draft. We did this at the end of October. Hopefully things improve in the offseason for me. But I think probably could be a little bit better here.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing is your 2 best strikeout guys might just be volume plays in Zach Wheeler and Sandy Alcantara. Imanaga's a very good pitcher, but he's more of a K per 9 or a K per inning guy. Schwellenbach could be more than that. We saw a huge upside from him, around July, especially when he went on a huge run. But then towards the end, it kind of came back to earth. He's got a couple of legitimate swing and miss pitches in the curveball and splitters. So I think there's upside here. But given what you invested, I think I'd want more of a surefire competing across all 5 categories than what you have. But I think overall it's fine.
All right. For more extensive fantasy baseball coverage, listen to the Fantasy Baseball Today podcast on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or anywhere else podcasts are found. Thanks for listening to Fantasy Baseball Today in 5, and we will be back again next week. Bye-bye.